Today, demolition begins on the house where 4 University of Idaho students were murdered in November of 2022.
The families of the victims who have fought to keep the house standing, calling this decision, quote, madness.
On a cold November night in 2022, 4 University of Idaho students were brutally murdered in their off-campus home. What began as a typical college town tragedy quickly turned into a chiseling puzzle that shocked the nation. As the investigation unfolded, questions about the killer's identity, the motive, and the chilling silence of the crime scene left the community and the world searching for answers. How could such an unimaginable act happen in a place so serene? And who could commit such violent acts against these young lives? Madison Mogen was born May 25, 2001. She would be 23 years old this year. She was born in Lake City, Idaho, and shortly after graduating Lake City High School, she enrolled in the University of Idaho as a freshman in the fall of 2019. She was known for making others smile and laugh. She excelled in everything she put her mind to, whether it be school or work. At the University of Idaho, Madison made the Dean's List every semester. She joined Pi Beta Phi. She was overall an amazing person. Kaylee Gonzalez was born June 8, 2001 in Concord, California. Kaylee's family moved to North Idaho around the time when she was 1 year old. She attended Charter Academy for middle school, where she met Madison, who became like a sister to her. After graduating Lake City High School, she went to the University of Idaho. She joined the Alpha Phi sorority. She was very adventurous and a hard worker. Kaylee was also Madison's roommate. She was moving out to move to Texas for a new job.
Hi, my name is Xana Kernodle. I'm a marketing major here at the University of Idaho.
Xana Kernodle was born July 5, 2002. She was from Avondale, Arizona. She went to high school in Idaho. Xana was a junior at the University of Idaho, majoring in marketing. She was also a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority. She was known for being positive, funny, and lighthearted. Xana's boyfriend name was Ethan Chapin, who was at the house with her. Ethan Chapin was born October 29, 2002 in Seattle, Washington. Ethan was also a triplet. He and his brothers packed up and moved to Idaho, where they worked at Hills Resort. He and his brothers attended the University of Idaho in 2021. Ethan joined the Sigma Chi fraternity. There were also 2 other female housemates that were living there at the time, but they were not attacked. On November 13, 2022, in the early morning, 4 University of Idaho students were fatally stabbed in an off-campus residence in Moscow, Idaho. The residence is a 3-story building, had 6 bedrooms, 2 on each floor. On November 12, 2022, around 9 p.m., Xana and Ethan went to a party at Ethan's fraternity. It was a short walk from the off-campus residence. That same night, Kaylee posted photos to her Instagram of her and her friends. Around 10 p.m., Kaylee and Madison went to a sports bar in Moscow called the Corner Club. Xana and Ethan returned back to the residence around 1:45 a.m. Kaylee and Madison left the bar at around 1:30 a.m. There was a live stream video that showed Madison and Kaylee by a food truck around 1:40 a.m., chatting and smiling and getting their food 10 minutes later.
We had 0 details. We just knew they were gone.
Olivia got into her sister's call log and frantically started cold calling recent numbers. She says a friend told her that Kaylee had been at the Corner Club bar around 1:07 a.m. and later texted a rideshare driver, whom Olivia managed to track down.
The rideshare driver said around 1:45, Kaylee had texted him requesting a ride from the Grub Truck, which is the local mac and cheese food truck, to take her back home to 1122 King, and she had with her another female.
Olivia then uncovered one of the most important leads in the case. The rideshare driver told her about a camera mounted on the Grub Truck.
So I was able to look it up and find Kaylee on the video, and I saw the girl that she was with was Maddie. So at that point I knew Kaylee and Maddie were together. They got into the car to go home together and alone.
The driver told her the exact time Kaylee and Maddie were dropped off at their house on King Road.
Kaylee and Madison arrived home around 1:56 a.m. The other two housemates were also out and arrived home at 1 a.m., the police says. At 11:58 a.m. the next day, November 13, 2022, a 911 call was placed on one of the housemates' cell phone requesting assistance for an unconscious person. The housemates that made the call lived on the ground floor and told the police that they were in bed at the time. The police came and alerted the public about the unalive of the 4 students in the news release. November 17th, an autopsy result showed that the 4 students were likely attacked with a large knife and was unalive after 2 a.m. from multiple stab wounds. The county coroner describes the wound as pretty extensive. The housemates were not attacked or held hostage. The probable cause affidavit for the case said that one of the housemates who survived was asleep on the same floor as Xana and Ethan. She was awakened by what sounded like Kaylee and her dog. She also said she heard a housemate saying something along the line of, "There's someone here." The surviving roommate said she believed the voice belonged to Kaylee, but investigators believe it might have been Xana after forensics download of her cell phone showed that she was on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. The roommate also said she opened her door twice within a short span of time. The second time she heard what sounded like crying from Xana's room and a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Security cameras picked up the sound of whimpering, a loud thud, and a dog barking numerous times starting around 4:17 a.m. The roommate allegedly opened the door a third time and saw a figure in black clothing and a mask that covered his mouth and nose walking towards her. She said she didn't recognize him. He walked past her and went out the sliding glass door. She said she stood in a frozen shock phase and then locked herself in her bedroom. The 4 victims were all stabbed to unalive on the second and third floor of the residence in their beds. They were not gagged or restrained, and the walls at the scene were spattered with blood.
And Dylan was sleeping here on the second floor, along with Xana and Ethan located here.
Kaylee and Madison were located here on the 3rd floor. The dog was located on the 3rd floor and the room by itself. Let's move around and see through the walls into the kitchen, to the back slider, and take a look at the time frames. At 4:04 a.m., the suspect can be seen trying to park his car. At 4:09, approximately 5 minutes later, he enters the house through the back slider. At 4:18, he leaves the house after committing the crimes. At 4:20, he's caught on camera driving away at a high rate of speed. All of this only took 9 minutes. Let's watch what that looks like. The suspect enters through the back sliding door. The first bedroom he stops at and opens the door, he sees no one there. He continues to the next bedroom. Here we know what happens. Downstairs, Dylan is sleeping. The noise from upstairs wakes her up, she thinks it's Kaylee playing with her dog. She gets up and goes to the door and looks out. She sees nothing there. The suspect then continues down the stairs about 3 minutes later. He then heads to Xana's room. Outside there's a security camera picking up some whimpering, cries, and the thud at 4:17. We've learned that Xana was found on the floor, which might explain the thud. Dylan again hears something and looks outside her door. She sees the suspect. He walks right past her.
Kaylee and Madison were found in Madison's room, and Xana and Ethan were found in Xana's room. Allegedly, before the 911 call was made, the surviving housemaid called her friends over to the residence because they believed one of the second-floor housemates was unconscious and was not waking up. The 911 call was made over 7 hours after the stabbing allegedly occurred. When police arrived, the door to the residence was open, and there was no signs of forced entry or damage inside the home. The 2 surviving housemates were on the property along with the other friends. All 4 victims were pronounced unalive at noon. Detectives believe the unalivings occurred sometime between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. Officers found Xana and Ethan's dog alive and unharmed on the 3rd floor. On the evening of November 13th, the University of Idaho canceled classes for November 14th. The school also scheduled a candlelight vigil to be held on the UI administration building's lawn on the evening of November 16th, but they ended up postponing it for 2 weeks. Fall break was to begin after November 18th, with classes resuming on November 28th. Many students and residents of Moscow, fearing their own safety, began Thanksgiving holiday away from Moscow. Others who stayed were anxious and cautious. The Moscow Police Department, supported by Idaho State Police, led the investigation along with the FBI. Autopsies on the 4 students stated they all appeared to have been stabbed multiple times with a large knife. None showed sign of sexual assault. No weapon has been recovered. One of the surviving housemates stated that the suspect was a male stranger around 5'10" with bushy eyebrows. On November 19th, Moscow police asked the public to submit any videos of the residents that had been recorded the night of the stabbing. On November 23rd, the Moscow police chief said at the press conference that authorities had received a number of tips. One was that Kaylee had a stalker, but were unable to verify that claim. On December 24th, investigators reported they received at least 15 tips, like emails, phone calls, and digital media regarding the case. At the time, police stated they believe it was a targeted attack. A camera in the area captured a white or light-colored Hyundai Elantra around the time of the stabbing. They got another surveillance recording obtained by investigators showing an Elantra passing by the student's home 3 times beginning at 3:29 a.m. At 4:04 a.m., the Elantra returned to the home for a 4th time. At 4:20 a.m., the car was seen speeding away from the neighborhood where the students lived. Investigators in a college adjacent to Moscow started an investigation into a white Elantra belonging to a 28-year-old PhD student and teaching assistant named Brian Christopher Koberger. Cell phone data showed that Brian used his cell phone that pinged off a cell tower near the 4 students' home around 9 a.m. November 13th, approximately 5 hours after the stabbing. Investigators also obtained 3 unidentified male DNA samples from the crime scene. Using public database, authorities reportedly identified a partial match to an individual with connections to Brian. They also recovered trash outside of Brian's family home in Pennsylvania for DNA, which they stated was consistent with being the source of the DNA from a tan leather knife sheath found on Madison's bed. On December 30th, Brian Kohberger was taken into custody by the FBI and the Pennsylvania State Police. At the time of his arrest, he was at his parents' home in Monroe County wearing a dress shirt and shorts while wearing examination gloves and putting trash into separate Ziploc baggies. Brian Christopher Kohberger was born on November 21, 1994 in Pennsylvania. He graduated Pleasant Valley High School in 2013. He then attended Monroe Career and Technical Institute, but a year later he dropped out. He then attended Northampton Community College and earned an associate's degree in psychology in 2018. In 2020, he received a BA, and in 2022, he received a MA in criminal justice. Brian moved to Washington State to pursue a PhD at the Washington State University in Pullman in the summer of 2022. The campus was less than 8 miles west of Moscow. On December 19th, Brian was terminated from his teaching assistant role, with the decision being based on his unsatisfactory performance as a teaching assistant. On December 30th, 2022, Brian was arrested on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 felony count of burglary. He was appointed a public defender and was detained without bond at the Monroe County Correctional Facility. On January 3rd, 2023, he agreed to an extradition. On January 4th, he was flown to Pullman, to Moscow, and held without bail. On January 5th, he was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary for breaking into a home with the intent to commit a felony. On May 17, 2023, Brian was indicted by a grand jury on 5 charges, 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. On May 23rd, Brian refused to enter a plea during his arraignment. His attorney said that Brian was standing silent on the charges. The judge entered a not guilty plea for him. On June 26, the prosecutor's office announced that they were seeking the unalive penalty given the alleged aggravating circumstances of the first-degree murder charges. The trial for this case is scheduled to take place in Boise, Idaho, with Judge Stephen Hippler presiding over the case. On October 9, 2024, Judge Hippler set the start date for jury selection as July 30, 2025, with the jury trial beginning on August 11, 2025. On February 24, 2023, the University of Idaho announced that the house where the unalivings occurred that was donated to the university would be demolished 10 months later on December 28.
Today, demolition begins on the house where 4 University of Idaho students were murdered in November of 2022. The families of the victims who have fought to keep the house standing calling this decision, quote, madness.
A memorial garden for the victims on the University of Idaho campus is being planned. Scholarships in the name of the 3 victims has been created. The university also awarded degrees to the 4 victims' family on May 13, 2023.
Trial of Brian Kohberger, the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students 2 years ago.
He can face the death penalty if convicted.
It's unlikely to prevail here. They filed 12 different motions. All of them failed across the board, from the idea that the death penalty was cruel and unusual to it violated international law. The judge knocked them all down. What surprises me most, though, guys, is how fast he did this. They filed those motions back in September. He held a quick hearing, and already we now have resolution 2.
So does this ruling give you any indication of how this judge is going to handle the trial going forward?
Well, he's got a whole bunch of motions to suppress some of the most damning evidence in this case.
As we all know, the DNA evidence, the cell phone records, Kohberger wants all of that tossed out.
The judge is going to hear more arguments about that and decide that in January.
Here are what some people are saying on Reddit. I could believe him entering through the 3rd floor, but I don't think he could go downstairs in that case, especially if he realized there were people awake there. He'd jump off the balcony and run at the first sign of trouble instead of taking any chances downstairs. 6 days ago, someone said, "Whoop whoop." So stuck about this. Judge Hipper ain't messing around. And TikTok, your days of defending your joke of a client are numbered. Don't waste your time with any more motions. You're out of your depth with this one. DP is still on the cards, hun. An eye for an eye sounds like justice to me. 4 days ago, someone said, I do not think that he took anything back to his apartment. This is someone who has extensively studied criminology and strategically planned to carry out the perfect crime. Although I think the knife sheath was an accident, I don't think the blood is in his apartment is connected. I would be more interested in what, if any, was found in his car. You don't commit this horrific of a crime and not get blood somewhere. Another Reddit user said, he is such a narcissist that he simply wanted to see if he could. Hence his survey to other convicted murderers. I believe he also was obsessed with Maddie and felt slighted when she didn't respond to his Instagram messages. Here's the last one. I think the entire reason for his major was to try to learn how to get away with murder and go on to be the greatest serial unaliver ever. It's sick and twisted, but I would not put this past him. I would love to read what you guys have to say about this case or your theories. Comment down below and let me know. As always, this is Mona Reads.